My name is Samantha, and I am 32 years old. I have been married to my husband for 3 years, though we do not have children yet. We live together in an apartment and only visit each other's parents a couple of times a year, usually for the Festival of Souls and New Year's. Since my husband's family home is quite far, those are the only times we can make the trip. During those gatherings, many relatives come together, making for a lively atmosphere. My in-laws have always been warm and welcoming toward me, treating me like their own daughter. When the whole family gets together for a banquet, my mother-in-law often asks for my help with preparations, not out of sarcasm or obligation, but because she genuinely enjoys working with me. I never mind lending a hand. However, my husband has a younger sister, Miranda, who is a completely different story. She has a difficult personality and barely acknowledges her parents, let alone helps them. One time, as we were setting up for a family gathering, my mother-in-law sighed and spoke in a hesitant tone. "It is just easier talking to you than to my own daughter, Samantha. I feel like I can ask you for help with anything." She sounded a bit embarrassed saying it, as if she felt guilty for confiding in me. It was clear that she had a strained relationship with her daughter and struggled to communicate with her. Miranda had always been a high achiever. She graduated from a prestigious prep school, got accepted into a top university, and now had plans to study abroad. My father-in-law often boasted about her academic success, though my mother-in-law seemed far less enthusiastic, more concerned about Miranda's attitude than her education. Miranda had been smarter than everyone else since she was a child, but with that intelligence came a sense of superiority. She looked down on others, including my husband. At the family gathering, one of our relatives, probably unaware of Miranda's arrogance, casually said, "It is wonderful that both siblings got a good education and went to college." The second those words left their mouth, Miranda's expression darkened. She shot a glare in their direction before scoffing loudly. "Do not compare my university to the third-rate school my brother went to," she sneered. "Going there is no different than stopping at high school." The room went completely silent. The awkward tension was unbearable. But my husband, ever the easygoing type, simply grinned and replied, "Well, maybe my school was not as fancy as yours, but I still ended up with the most beautiful wife. I would say I am doing pretty well." His playful remark broke the tension, and most of the relatives laughed, but Miranda did not. Instead, she turned her anger toward me. She looked me up and down and then, with clear condescension, asked, "By the way, Samantha, what university did you go to?" She already knew I had only graduated high school. She was asking on purpose, just to embarrass me in front of everyone. I was not ashamed of my background, so I answered honestly. "You already know, Miranda. I graduated from high school." Miranda let out a loud, exaggerated gasp. "Oh my! I just assumed, since my brother is always bragging about you, that you had gone to college. Wow, there are still people who only graduate high school these days." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving the entire room in uncomfortable silence. Some of the other relatives had also not gone to college, making Miranda's words even more insulting. My husband and mother-in-law had to bow their heads and apologize to everyone for her rudeness. After graduating from university, Miranda continued to graduate school. And even after completing that, she had bigger plans. She was going to study abroad. Before she left, my husband and I, along with some relatives, gathered at my in-laws' house to see her off. Of course, even at a farewell gathering meant for her, she could not resist throwing one last jab in my direction. "Samantha, I doubt someone like you, who only has a high school education, has ever studied abroad," she said smugly. "It is not the same as traveling for fun." My husband was about to snap back, but I placed a hand on his arm to stop him and simply smiled. "Well, overseas can be dangerous, and the food might not always suit you. Just be careful out there." I had meant nothing but kindness, but Miranda's face flushed red with anger. "You have never studied abroad, so do not act like you know anything," she snapped. The entire room went quiet again. Even as she stormed out, the atmosphere remained awkward. Once she was gone, my father-in-law let out a long, exhausted sigh and muttered, "I really hope she finds a good job after this. I have spent so much money on her education." My husband chuckled and responded, "She was bragging about working for some fancy foreign-owned company, right?" My mother-in-law joined in, though she looked worried. "Yes, but who knows how that will go? Finding a job is not easy, even for someone with a degree." I did not really care about Miranda's future plans. Once the relatives started heading home, I quietly helped my in-laws clean up. For the first time in years, their home felt peaceful. With Miranda gone, it was actually enjoyable to visit. I spent time in the kitchen with my mother-in-law, cooking meals together, while my father-in-law shared stories from my husband's childhood. It was nice. It was genuinely nice. And for a while, I actually forgot Miranda existed. 6 months later, my husband got a call from his father. "Miranda is coming back next week to start working as an intern." Just hearing her name was enough to ruin my mood. My husband noticed immediately and said, "I know how you feel, but I do not want to see her either." Then, with a serious look, he added, "To be honest, I do not even respect her anymore. She has always bragged about how smart she is, but in reality, she is just living off my parents' money. My dad is in debt because of her, and she does not even care." I stared at him, surprised. For the first time, I realized, maybe I was not the only one who had enough of Miranda. My husband had never spoken about hating his sister before, but the way he talked about her now made it clear he truly resented her. With Miranda back home, I did my best to avoid visiting my in-laws. My husband agreed. However, I never expected to run into her somewhere completely unexpected. The next day at work, I was informed that our company would be hosting an international intern. The Human Resources Department sent over the details, explaining that we would be taking in a student currently studying abroad. I did not think much of it until I was handed the list of names. The moment I saw it, I froze. It was Miranda. Our company specializes in connecting foreign workers with companies in the U.S. We handle everything from interpreters and legal consultants to executive placements. We also help send workers to overseas companies. Miranda had always bragged about studying economics at university and graduate school, so maybe she wanted to specialize in international business. Still, I could not understand why she had chosen our company. It was not a large corporation, far from the prestigious, high-paying firm she had always dreamed of working for. I decided to ask someone in HR. "It is rare for us to accept interns, right?" The HR representative sighed and looked a bit uncomfortable. "Yeah, it was kind of forced on us. Apparently, the government is pushing to make internships more common. We were told to take her in, but honestly, her grades are terrible. If you had not pointed it out, I would not have even realized she was your sister-in-law." I blinked. Terrible grades? That did not sound like the Miranda I knew, the woman who had mocked my education every chance she got. Even so, I did not tell my husband just yet. There was still a chance that it was someone with the same name. If it really was her, I would deal with it when the time came. A month later, the internship started. As usual, I arrived early to clean the office. Most of our employees were foreign professionals, so they had a strictly business-minded approach to work. No one arrived early or stayed late to wipe down desks or mop floors. I did not mind, it was my habit. Then, just as I finished wiping a table, a familiar voice greeted me, though the tone was far from enthusiastic. "Good morning. I am Miranda. I am starting my internship today." I looked up. She was standing stiffly, clearly nervous. For a brief moment, she almost seemed like a completely different person. But then, as soon as she recognized me, her entire expression changed. Her usual arrogant smirk returned. "Oh, what are you doing here?" She let out a small laugh. "Oh, I see, you are a high school graduate, so you must be the janitor, huh?" I was dressed in work clothes and wearing a white cleaning hood, so to her, I probably looked exactly like a custodian. I did not let it bother me. Instead, I simply continued cleaning and smiled. You are interning here starting today, right? I am sure there will be a lot of new things to learn, but do your best. Miranda scoffed. What the hell? Why is the janitor giving me advice? She muttered. Just finish cleaning and get out. A few employees had already arrived and overheard her comment, but Miranda did not seem to realize it. Her nervousness returned when more staff began to enter. She quickly straightened up, pretending nothing had happened. After finishing my morning tasks, I changed into my business attire and joined everyone in the conference room for our morning meeting. Miranda sat there rigidly, looking extremely uncomfortable. But the moment I walked in, her eyes widened in confusion. What the hell? She blurted out. Why is the janitor here? The entire room fell silent. The HR representative immediately turned to Miranda with a warning look. Do you realize who you are talking to? That is our president. Miranda's face went pale. Still, she refused to believe it. President? Of what? This is a foreign-affiliated company. Why would a high school graduate be the president? She turned to HR, desperate for confirmation. I decided to answer for myself. Yes, this is an international company, but I run the US branch. I use my maiden name at work, so that is probably why you did not recognize me. I saw panic flicker in her eyes. But you only graduated high school, she protested. I nodded. That is true. After finishing high school, I moved abroad and started working for the founder of this company. Over time, I helped expand our partnerships with corporations across multiple countries. When we decided to launch a US branch, I was chosen to lead it. Miranda looked like she wanted to disappear. After the meeting, I pulled her and HR aside. Do not treat her differently just because she is my sister-in-law, I instructed. She needs to learn what it means to work in the real world. Whether she stays or not depends on her performance. HR nodded. Miranda, on the other hand, looked on the verge of tears. Still, I left it at that. From then on, I had nothing to do with her internship. That evening, I checked in with HR. How is Miranda doing? The HR representative sighed. She cannot do anything. But her attitude is worse. She does not listen, and she is impossible to work with. I expected as much. So you would not recommend hiring her? Not in a million years. That night, I finally told my husband about Miranda's internship. Before I could even finish, he cut me off. I already know, he muttered. Dad called and asked if you could get her a job? I raised an eyebrow. She was rejected by every major company she applied to. Even with her fancy education, she could not even get past the application screening process. I sighed. She does not even speak English well. And today, she insulted me in front of all my employees, thinking I was just the cleaning staff. My husband stared at me in shock. Wow, he muttered. Then she really has no chance. Miranda lasted 1 week. After that, she stopped showing up. HR tried to contact her, but her phone was off. I was asked if I could call her parents, but I refused. If she is not responsible enough to show up, then she is not responsible enough to work here. Report it to the main office and terminate the internship. Later, my mother-in-law called to tell me that Miranda had locked herself in her room. Apparently, it was her first real failure, and she could not handle it. Her pride would not allow her to admit defeat, but she also refused to change. In the midst of all this, I found out I was pregnant. And as I looked at Miranda, I knew one thing for sure. I would raise my child differently. Because no amount of education can make up for a terrible personality.